Back in February, the guy that hauls some scrap I saw at a house where I was working, he told me he had this little Frigidaire Model 44 that he didn't need, and I ended up buying it from him. The thing works good, the wiring's all pretty soft, but it definitely needs a door gasket. I'm not sure why they chose to cut it, notch it around the corner there, and have a seam there, for sure. I didn't attempt to get the blue. I'm sure it's probably not made. I did get some white. I figured that'd look better than gray. It's a Watsco product. Supposed to be. Got it through Johnstone Supply in my case. One thing I have that most don't happen to have laying around is a tool my grandfather bought, a gasket notcher. This was made by Watsco. Evidently it's their number CNC, or actually it's GNC-1. What it has too, one of the things it has is this adjustable stop. You can move it out for wider gaskets. But it's made to notch 45s to make a 90-degree corner, 90 and 22 degrees. The 22 degrees is what's used to make these bends when they're too tight for the gasket to bend. Okay, so this Watsco tool's got some nice long razor blades, two of them. Right now they're set for a 90. As I mentioned, they don't go all the way out and reach here. They've left 1/8 of an inch or a little over there. So the side of the gasket you don't want to cut all the way through would face out like that. The gasket's a little old and brittle. It's also squeezed out some that way, so it didn't really cut out far enough, but that would be the setting you'd make for a 90-degree corner. You'd have it set for a 90. See if we can get it to trim a little better. You can hear my dog is barking at the neighborhood. So we're really not getting close enough here with this old gasket. I didn't want to use the new because I didn't want to start wasting it. Alright, since this is rolled out some, I'm going to move it so the blade is closer to the edge and we're not quite up against here. And I still didn't really get out there far enough. And my blades aren't set right. I'm cutting twice. So I gotta change that. Alright, now I got these nice and even. Should have paid attention to that to begin with. The old gasket had tape with that joint in the bottom middle. Now for going around the tight corners, I've now got it set for 22 degrees. It's probably really 22.5, but that's getting it pushed clear up against its stops that are down in here and keeping that junction there nice and straight. So you still don't want to cut all the way through the gasket. You're going to want to find where the center of your curve is, and you're going to cut a notch out of it. Little gasket, yeah, I guess it cut. As you can see, the 22 only let it bend so much. Gonna move over a little more. I haven't actually made one for a while. That's not too bad, maybe. Depending on the radius, you might need more space between here and the center. But you can see they'll pull up pretty good. You should still seal along here. Now I've got it set for a 45 degree. Again, you'd be usually trying to find your center of your radius. You'd probably want to measure and try and get these even if you can. Now the 45, you'd need a pretty tight bend, or you would only need one or two. So if you're going around the gentle curve, you're going to use the 22. Alright, a lot of these curved corners on these 40s and 50s refrigerator doors are about a 6-inch radius. This coffee can measures 5.5 across that top lip, and it's pretty close. Now on this 48 over here, it's got approximately the same curve to it. This gasket was notched. I don't know if that's factory or if it's been replaced once, but you can see they made 4 notches in order to get around this corner, and they did not go all that close to the outside edge here. So here I have some leftover gasket, too short to do much with. This is a little longer, but still wasn't even enough to go around the door on this little Model 44 in one piece. I didn't feel like having it be 2 pieces, so I bought the white that I'm going to use. So this is going to be to practice with. That gasket over there, they've got those notches about 1 1/8 inches apart exactly. So I'm going to make some marks 1 1/8 inches apart on this. Maybe experiment with how deep to cut, because usually it's cut more to this edge than what they've got it, but we'll see what happens. Alright, I adjusted this out a little so that we aren't cutting so close to this edge. I like the gasket in that 48. Got marks 1 1/8 inches apart. Butt this edge up against there and try and cut right under this rib. I've got it set for the 22 degree cut. Getting a little too much build up in here, and it's now trying to spread the blades apart, isn't it? In fact, there's still a little of the old gasket in there. I'll have to get that out. Alright, now I've adjusted this back in as close as it'll go, and we'll be cutting through more of the gasket this time. 1/8 apart again, still at 22 degree. It's probably a little too far through because, yeah, it still may seal, but you're going to have more gap on the outside of the seal than you want there. This up, get all those pieces out. If it fits on the door at all. Alright. This does here. Now, there's no reason why with some careful work, really sharp single edge razor blade or whatever, that you couldn't do this by hand without that tool. Might take a little practice. So, how's that fitting together? Not too bad. It's trying to pop out a little, but with time that would all line up and go in and should fit pretty tight. Hopefully sealed good enough you're not getting moisture in right here. Now here's where we cut further towards the outside edge. Say we, I guess I mean I. Now, even that would seal pretty good. Bulging about the same either way. I seem to have somehow got a crooked cut there a little. Yeah, we'll maybe try it again and cut through even less. Here I have it cut through only about halfway. Here I have it cut through as much as the first attempt on this piece, but only in 3 places 1.5 inches apart instead of 1.125", which I just guessed at that. Let's see what this does. What I saw, it looked like it was going to pucker pretty bad. Now the white gasket I bought, I believe is one of the 2 Supco ones that says you should be able to stretch it like other guys have done around the 6-inch corner. Yeah, we can see that it only cut halfway through. That's going to pucker up quite a bit at that radius, which is what I thought. That puckers a bit too, but almost would lay in there over time and fit pretty tight. Or you'd need to go just a little different than the 22 degree. Go a little wider. Now the original gasket had a joint in the middle, I think I mentioned earlier. I'm planning on starting it here and not having that extra joint. I've got the tool set for 90 degrees again. I want to cut all the way through the gasket, which doesn't really give me a way to push it up against here. I'm kind of eyeballing my 90. Squished out, didn't quite cut all the way there. I took the liner off to clean around the edges on both sides. I'm going to see if I can't get the gasket to the liner while it's off. Don't want to stretch it, make it pull away, so I'm going to leave it just a little bit tight. Now this 90 I don't want to cut all the way through. So it's set about like it was before. Let's see how that does for 90. I hope it does alright, since this is my good gasket material. On there all the way now. I might have to tape this to get it to stay. Here, good enough to do this. Ooh, at 90 doesn't look too bad. With this hole here, I should already be able to locate the center. Sorry I got off camera there for a while, part of the work. I was referring to using this hole for this screw, and the liner was already centered. So I was able to stretch the gasket around there, mark it and get it pretty close and work from there. Mark it and go 9/16 each way to get 1 1/8, and then 2 more 1 1/8. Alright, after I found the center, I transferred it to the very edge here where it wouldn't show so much. 9/16 each direction, then 1 1/8. It'll give me the 4 notches. Whoops, almost didn't set it back to 22. Boy, that would have messed it up. be in there and work out pretty good. Guess I had that off view for a while. So 422 degree cuts, 22.5, whatever early is. Alright, I mostly just held this over top of the other and eyeballed the line to the angle. Get the gasket notcher back on 90 degrees. Just a little extra at these corners I might have to trim with scissors. And on the back side there's just enough to make it pucker some going around these corners, so a person might trim that slightly with the scissors too, or a razor or something, to help that lay down so the liner fits on decent. Too bad at the corner, there's a little bit. Now this way, that 90 I made, it wasn't cut all the way through. So I trimmed just a little off of here so it'll lay nice and flat. I trimmed a little out of two places here, it's going to lay much flatter. Same over here on this corner, and a little bit right here. That should help it let the liner pull up flat. Now it needs holes through the gasket and some screws started, and I should be able to start fitting it on. Somehow I'm missing or didn't shoot the video part where I located the holes before I used the paper punch to make them bigger. Well, I still had the liner on the workbench and the gasket taped to it. I was folding it out, trying to keep this edge against the liner, and then I'd use the awl to poke a hole in about the center of this. Well, the paper punch is doing the trick. My holes I punched are a little too close to this edge. I'm about 1/4 inch on most of them. The original gasket was 3/8, so I'm trying to get a little further back. Since the hole's bigger than the screw, that'll give me a little room to work with. Turn the paper punch over, I can actually see a little better where the hole I punched was. Hopefully it fits. Alright, so I started getting this all back on this one. You have to open the latch and work it over this. And once I got a couple screws started here and I got that back on, it kind of helped hold it a little bit. One thing I didn't notice when I took things apart is one screw had a washer under it. None of the rest did. I don't know if that's factory, but I'm assuming it went near this right here. It went in this hole to help support the fact that we had another hole right next to it, maybe. Now I've tightened none of the screws. I just started in here loose. This door does flex more than I thought it would with the liner loose. So gotta tighten them all up in the end, make sure it's fitting square on the front of the fridge. Well, part of why I was looking at the 3/8 distances, you can see, well, how good you can see it on the camera, but you can see where the gasket was really only sealing on 3/8 to half of an inch here, and then this is, the paint's discolored. So I didn't want to cause it to slip in too much on the liner. I want to be able to pull it back out and tighten it in place, hopefully about where it was, same line in the paint. Now you'd be fighting trying to get it through the vinyl right now, and then you wouldn't have any given the vinyl to pull it around at all if I hadn't punched those holes in it. I wish sometimes that these were not straight, regular head screws. Alright, I've got screws most of the way around now. One more side. Easy. Alright. Definitely gotta compress yourself back in place soon. Huh. Like we fit a little tight on the hinge side, which isn't unusual for a new gasket. It does close. Now it just needs to stay shut for a while. It will soon form into place.